Where you been? You told me to wait here because I embarrassed myself and that I should just wait until it was my turn, and it's been 24 hours. Very inappropriate. Let's talk about analytics. Analytics are headlights on a dark night. Do I really need to tell you that analytics are important? Probably not. I don't think so. Would you run a business without data? I can't imagine, unless you're Nostradamus or something like this. So why would you run a digital signage deployment without data? Well, there's one reason, which is you come from the traditional broadcast digital signage world. You're used to a world where there's no data to collect. And if there's no data to collect, not a lot of competency for actually running an analytics program. The beauty of interactive digital content is you actually have stuff to measure. You don't just know what they touched on the screen, but if you have a camera, you know their age and gender. If you have integration with the back office or with the cloud, you know what's the weather is outside or sports scores or who knows what. You have all of this context about all of these interactions. You know all of this stuff. And if you know all of that stuff and you can collect it across all of your players, across all your extensive deployments, there's a lot you can learn about what's working, what's not working, and maybe something you never knew about your target audience. You can do all of this with Intuiface. There are lots of questions you can answer. I mean, maybe it would help a little bit to think about what kinds of things can I answer. For example, in retail, which stores have the most interactive signage use? For sales presentations, which topics were most discussed with a prospect? For trade shows, what was the average idle time for various times of day? Did we have too many kiosks in the booth? For exhibits, what were the most popular videos or topics? What was the average length of a session? Hospitality, which partner ads generated the most views and requests for an email? You can use analytics to answer just about anything you want. You just need to collect the right data. Not just any data, the right data. So let's talk about how you would do that with Intuiface. This diagram is sort of a high-level look at how analytics works with Intuiface. On the left, you have all of your players across all of your deployments all over the world. Each player is running its own experience, and that experience, created by you, is collecting a predefined set of data. All of those players are collecting that data and uploading it to the cloud, putting it into something we call the Analytics Data Hub. The hub is this cloud-based resource whose job is to take all that player data, collate it, and make it available for analysis. Once it's ready for analysis, you have two choices. You can forward it to third-party platforms. You have some experience with analytics. You have a preferred platform. You can forward that data. Alternatively, you can use Intuiface's own charts and dashboards feature. Yeah, it's built into Intuiface. And let's be honest, for most of us, we don't have a go-to analytics platform. So charts and dashboards is perfect for visualizing your data, looking for trends, identifying very important pieces of insight to help you improve the success of your deployment. All of that is possible with Intuiface. Let's break it down a little bit more. When you're using the analytics feature of Intuiface, the first step is data collection, and there's lots of flexibility there. There is, for example, a lot of automatic event capture and data capture. In terms of events, anytime anybody navigates from one scene to another, for example, we can capture that. And that's important because you get dwell time per scene, which is a really important metric. There's also lots of data we collect. Every time you tell Intuiface to collect data, you're specifying certain pieces of data. Intuiface is collecting a whole bunch of other data too in the context of that data point. It's one point with lots of pieces of information like the name of the device and the name of the experience and the time of day. All of that stuff is part of the data that's collected. When you collect a data point, you can enter an unlimited number of parameters. Each individual data point can have lots of different pieces of information. Again, it could be a 20-year-old female on a Thursday on the second floor of this store selected this item and it was raining outside. That's one data point. So there's the event, which is the person touched something, there's the thing they touched, and there's all of that context, which might help you identify certain things you should be doing to improve the effectiveness of your deployment. There is no limit to the number of parameters you can include in a data point. You can record data while you're offline. Your devices do not need to be online all the time. At some point, they need to be online to upload the data to the data hub, but they can be offline deployments. They just need to be on periodically. There is the notion of sessions in Intuiface Analytics, and this is important because it enables you to differentiate one user from another. Now, Intuiface doesn't have ESP. It doesn't know it's one user or another. You need to do something in your experience to sort of indicate it's a new user. Maybe there's an inactivity timer where it resets itself. Well, now you can assume it's a new session. Or there's a button that says start over. You can assume it's a new session. The idea is to equate a session with a unique user so you can differentiate users. Whatever approach you pick, it may not be perfect. Maybe it's 90-10. But by and large, whatever approach you pick is fairly good at differentiating one user from the other so you don't just have a mess of data and can't tell who did what. We do compress the data that's collected by player. Some of you might be deploying to environments where there is no Ethernet connection whatsoever. What you have are 3G, 4G connections, and 5G maybe. And 5G is pretty quick these days. But they could be metered connections, right? You're paying for that data, and we're making sure it's nice and tight. We're not eating it all up. And finally, the Intuiface Analytics capability works everywhere. You're building your experience in Composer, you're deploying to any player platform, and no matter where you go, you can run the analytics capability and collect data. So let's talk about how to set it up. This is sort of step one. I'm in Composer. What we want to do is set up data tracking in this experience. We want to collect data. So step number one is to add the data tracking interface asset, which is right here at the top. You see that? There's the data tracking interface asset, which is now in my experience. It's on the left in the interface assets panel. By definition, just adding this data tracking interface asset into my experience means that every time I run it, it's generating two data points. When the experience started, when the experience stopped. That will tell me how long the experience ran. If I open the data tracking, the X-ray panel for the data tracking interface asset, you'll notice that one of the properties is include scene navigation events. Click. I'm going to want to do that because by clicking that button, the analytics feature will always track when you enter a scene and leave a scene, which enables you to measure dwell time. Intuiface automatically measures dwell time for each scene if you turn that property on. There's no real reason not to turn it on unless you really want to reduce the amount of data that's produced by your experience. So right now, we're going to collect two sets of data points, experience entry and exit, scene navigation. Let's do something a little more interesting. Here we have a little scenario. You'll notice there's a photo gallery here. See this little photo gallery? We want to visit that photo gallery starting from this scene. So I need to add a button that will get me to the photo gallery, which is on a scene called Track Interaction Events. I want to add a button that navigates me to that scene, and I want it to say a new session has started. Okay? I want it to say a new session has started. So let's add an ugly little button that I can use to navigate to the next scene. We'll call this Start Tour, and we'll make the button red. So we'll put the font will be white, and and the button will make red. That's nice. Make this a little bit bigger. That's a nice ugly button. So we're going to start the tour. Two things need to happen. I want to navigate to the next scene, and I want to indicate that a session has started. Let's do the session started first. Right-clicking the button, adding a trigger. When the button is pressed and released, right? When the button is pressed and released, then first thing we want to do, interface assets, data tracking, start new session. See that? When the button is pressed, we're going to indicate that a new session has started. Notice we can assign a session ID. If we leave that blank, then Intuiface will assign a very large randomly generated hexadecimal number. I tend to go with this feature, I don't give it my own IDs because you're guaranteeing that no two sessions have the same ID, but you could assign your own. So when the button is pressed, we will indicate that a new session has started, and scene-to-scene navigation, go to the scene named, track interaction events, right? Let's go to the next scene, track interaction events. On this scene, when you pick an image, this little guy below slides into view with information about that image. That's how that works. Every time you pick an image, that thing below slides into view. If you go to the scene structure panel, see this on the left? That's the data feed for this photo gallery. Okay, that's the data feed. Now, it's out of scope of this discussion to talk about how this was built, but if you take a look, that image in the data feed has a trigger which it says is tapped, and all this stuff happens. Let's get a little closer. When any image in that gallery is tapped, then all of this stuff happens. All of that stuff is moving the thing into view with information about the artwork. I'm going to add one other action. Add one more action, interface assets, move this up a little bit, data tracking, log event. This is how you create custom events with the parameters that you care about. On the right, it's saying, well, what's the name of this event? This remembers all the other things that I've ever typed in. I did type in photo scene, so I'll stick with it. I could have called it George. We can call it photo scene. So when an image is tapped, then it's going to bring that thing into view, and it's going to create a data point. The event name is photo scene. No data yet. We need to know what data. So let's add some parameters. The first parameter would be the name of the photo. The second parameter could be the price of that photo. So this will have two parameters, name and price. We now need to grab the name and the price, and we'll do that with binding. So we're going to grab it from the data feed. Here's the artwork name right there. So we're going to put the artwork name in the name parameter. And for the price, we're going to grab price. There we go. So now I've put the artwork name in the name parameter. I've put the price in the price parameter. Every time a button is an image is tapped in the gallery, we're going to slide that thing into view and create a data point containing information about what item was put in view. Now look at this. If I go back and push play, let's talk through what's happening. Under the covers, nothing is happening yet, right? But if I click Start Tour, under the covers, not only have we navigated, but we have also created a new session, right? We said a new session has started. Now I'm on the photo gallery, and there's a whole bunch of photos here. If I click a photo, up comes this thing into view, and you remember, we created a data point. That data point was generated with artwork name, a sunshine in the field. The price is $6.50. The event name is photo scene. Boom. And we're sending that up to the data hub. Your audience will have no idea any of this stuff is happening. Okay, let's say that you have an experience out there that's generating lots of data. There's lots of log event actions. There's all this stuff happening. Now it's time to take a look at that data and start visualizing it. Here we are in the My Intuiface website. You'll notice right smack in the middle, there's analytics data and analytics dashboards. Analytics data enables me to do that sort of export. I can create the Excel spreadsheet. I can forward it to third-party platforms. It also has a little table that tells me how many data points I've been generating for my account. You would be here if you want to export it. That's normally why you would be on this page. Because there's unlimited data points in any of the analytics plans, and so you don't have to really monitor it too much, but it's all here. I want to spend time on analytics dashboards. That's really where the magic happens. Let me go to analytics dashboards. We're now loading all the dashboards associated with this particular Intuiface account. There's two dashboards. You can see them in the upper left. One is called My First Dashboard. The other is called the Trade Show Dashboard. This Trade Show Dashboard is available to everybody. Anybody with an Intuiface account can access that Trade Show Dashboard, which has real data collected from a trade show that we attended a couple of years ago when social distancing wasn't important, right? So we have all of these different charts using actual data. We've got bar and line and row and single value and gauge and pie, all these different kinds of charts in a dashboard. So what you're seeing now is the dashboard. It's a collection of charts. And what's cool about this is it's a pretty flexible editor, so I can move things around and resize it and tighten it up. I have a lot of flexibility here. And in the upper right-hand corner, I can share that dashboard. Every dashboard can have one or more unique URLs. In fact, a dashboard can have multiple URLs. Notice I can create a new share, and I might do that if I have different stakeholders. I can give them each unique URLs and choose when to shut off one URL or another, right? I can treat them separately. So the dashboard can have one or more URLs. You can also embed it as an iframe. The result will look like this. It will still be connected to the data hub, okay? But you can't edit it or make changes. And so if you're an agency or an integrator, you might have multiple clients, and each client has one or more dashboards, and you publish it and you give them the URL, and they can always play with the data and keep apprised of how well the project is progressing, and hopefully tracking how well the project is fulfilling its key performance indicators, its KPIs. Let's talk about charts though, right? So the dashboard is comprised of one or more charts. We need to create a chart. There's a whole bunch here already. See over here on the right, add a chart. I can create a new chart if I want. There's a whole bunch of templates I can work with, or I can create a brand new one, which takes us to the chart editor. We spent a lot of time figuring it, well, I didn't spend a lot of time. Development team spent a lot of time figuring out what are the key concepts that need to be available within a chart building tool. Because we use analytics to run our own business, and there's amazing products out there, but they're very complicated and you need to spend a lot of time with it. Can we come up with something simple? I think we did. On the left, here are all of the parameters generated by all of your data points, right? You have all of these data points, all these parameters associated with data points. This top of the list here, those are the parameters we always generate. Intuiface always, for any data point, has values for these parameters. Then at the bottom, you can see custom parameters. Those are parameters that you specified in your experience as part of a log event. So you specified these. At the top, Intuiface always collects those. On the right is the chart builder. Think of the dimension as x-axis, the measure as y-axis, and segment gives you sort of a third axis there. Let's quickly build a simple chart. Let's identify how long each experience ran, just the total amount of runtime. On the left, there's experience name. I'll put that on the x-axis. On the left, here's elapsed time by experience. I'll drag it, put it on the y-axis, and we got ourselves a chart. Apparently, there were 3 experiences. These are their session times. Pretty simple. At the very top of the chart data section, I have over 30 different chart types to choose from. For example, I could change that line to a pie chart. Same data. Actually, visually, this kind of works for me, right? So I might want to keep this. Let's take a look at this central filter section for a moment. I'll take that experience name parameter, drag it into filters, and look what happened. It's showing me all the possible values for the experience name parameter. There are 4 possible values. Now clearly, the default is for all of them to be selected, which means I'm only seeing 3 experiences on the right. That means this thing called signage remote, it never ran, so there's no data for it. This top filter section lets me filter the data. It's a pre-filter. It pre-filters the data before the chart editor shows the chart. So notice in the filter section, I selected only 1 experience, so you're only getting 1 data point. I can select a second experience. I'm pre-filtering the data. Now you have 2. Then as well, I can add the third. So now we're back to the original pie chart. So that filter section can be used to pre-filter the data. I can actually do this. I could have left it there, but I could also do the same below in chart control. What I'm doing in chart control, see in the bottom of the chart editor? Now you have a drop down. Here it's a post filter. That drop down will show up in the dashboard. This chart in the dashboard will have that drop down. Thus, you're enabling your stakeholders, when you publish your dashboard to the web, you're giving them the ability to filter their charts in real time. Back on the right, there are ways to play with the chart title and axis names. There are ways to play with the data to make sure it's properly formatted and visually correct and accurate. So you have lots of control, even the color scheme and all that sort of thing. You have tons of things you can do to make sure the chart looks right, which brings us back to the dashboard and the huge variety of charts that one can work with. If I grab this URL, and let's take a look. So this is the published version of the dashboard. This is the version you would share with your colleagues, with your clients, with the stakeholders. As I said, it has the same information. It just can't be edited, but I can control, and these are all configurable. Do I want them to be able to change the date range? These keys, I can interact with these keys. You see how I'm playing with the key and filtering based on selected items. So that wasn't very interesting, but that one is. And I don't think I have any, yeah, right here. For example, the experience name, right? So the average dwell time per experience, I can pick a particular experience, and that will update the chart. All of this can be done with a simple little analytics feature built directly into Intuiface. I hope you found this interesting. I think I'm done. I'm going to put on some better pants. Thank you.